millions of lives. The partition was based on the two-nation theory, which argued that Hindus and Muslims were distinct nations. This theory, championed by leaders like Muhammad Ali Jinnah, sought to create separate homelands for these two major religious communities. It aimed to create separate homelands for them. However, the implementation of this theory was fraught with challenges and complexities. The partition was a deeply flawed process. The hurried and haphazard manner in which borders were drawn led to confusion and chaos. It was accompanied by widespread violence, displacement, and bloodshed. Communities that had coexisted for centuries turned against each other, leading to horrific massacres and atrocities. Millions of people were forced to migrate across the newly drawn borders, seeking safety and refuge. Families were torn apart and countless lives were lost in the ensuing chaos. This mass migration resulted in one of the largest humanitarian crises in human history. The sheer scale of the displacement was unprecedented, with people traveling by foot, train, and cart to reach their new homes. The partition left a deep scar on the Indian subcontinent, sowing the seeds of mistrust and animosity between India and Pakistan. The trauma of partition continues to resonate in the collective memory of the region. The two newly formed nations inherited a complex legacy of colonial rule, religious tensions, and unresolved territorial disputes. These issues would shape their future relations and contribute to ongoing conflicts. This volatile mix laid the groundwork for future conflicts between them. The early years of independence were marked by skirmishes and wars, as both nations sought to assert their sovereignty and territorial claims. The most contentious issue was the fate of the princely state of Kashmir. This region, with its strategic location and diverse population, became a flashpoint for conflict. Both India and Pakistan claimed this strategically important region, which had a predominantly Muslim population but was ruled by a Hindu Maharaja. The conflicting claims over Kashmir led to several wars and ongoing tensions. The dispute over Kashmir became a flashpoint for future wars and continues to be a major obstacle in India-Pakistan relations. The legacy of partition, with its unresolved issues and deep-seated animosities, continues to shape the geopolitics of South Asia to this day. The first war between India and Pakistan erupted just months after their independence. The conflict was sparked by an uprising in the Poonch region of Kashmir against the Maharaja's rule. Pakistan, seeing an opportunity to annex the Muslim-majority state, provided support to the insurgents. India, in response to the Maharaja's request for assistance, airlifted troops to Srinagar, the capital of Kashmir. This marked the beginning of the First Indo-Pak War over Kashmir. Both sides deployed their armies, engaging in fierce battles for control of key towns and strategic locations. The war witnessed intense fighting in the mountainous terrain of Kashmir. Key battles took place in places like Uri, Poonch, and Skardu. Both sides fought valiantly, but the conflict reached a stalemate. A ceasefire was declared in January 1949, dividing Kashmir along a line of control. The First Kashmir War had significant consequences for both India and Pakistan. It solidified the division of Kashmir, with India controlling the majority of the region, including the Kashmir Valley. Pakistan gained control of a smaller portion known as Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. The second major conflict between India and Pakistan occurred in 1965. This war, unlike the first one in 1947, was not just confined to the region of Kashmir. It was a full-scale war that saw battles across various fronts, involving air, naval, and ground forces. The conflict was a significant escalation in the ongoing hostilities between the two nations, which had been simmering since their independence from British rule in 1947. Unlike the First War, which was primarily focused on Kashmir, the 1965 war involved fighting across a much wider front. The conflict saw significant engagements in regions such as Punjab and Rajasthan, with both sides launching major offensives. The scale of the war was unprecedented for both countries, involving large numbers of troops, tanks, and aircraft. The conflict was triggered by Pakistan's Operation Gibraltar, a covert operation aimed at infiltrating Indian-administered Kashmir and inciting an uprising against Indian rule. This operation was part of Pakistan's broader strategy to destabilize Indian control over Kashmir and to internationalize the Kashmir issue. However, the plan did not go as expected, leading to a full-scale military response from India. India responded to Pakistan's incursion with a full-fledged military offensive, crossing the international border in Punjab. This marked a significant escalation in the conflict as Indian forces advanced into Pakistani territory, aiming to cut off supply lines and capture strategic positions. The Indian military's response was swift and decisive, showcasing their readiness to defend their territory. This marked the first time since partition that both countries engaged in a conventional war outside of Kashmir. The battles were intense and widespread, with both sides suffering significant casualties. The war also saw the involvement of air and naval forces, adding a new dimension to the conflict. The use of tanks, artillery and aircraft highlighted the modern nature of the warfare. The war witnessed large-scale tank battles, particularly in the Chamyorian and Sialkot sectors. These battles were some of the largest tank engagements since World War II, involving hundreds of tanks on both sides. The tank battles were fierce and played a crucial role in determining the outcomes of various engagements. The use of tanks demonstrated the mechanized nature of the conflict and the importance of armored units in modern warfare. The 1965 war lasted for 17 days and resulted in heavy casualties on both sides. Thousands of soldiers were killed or wounded, and the civilian population also suffered due to the widespread destruction. The human cost of the war was immense, with both countries experiencing significant losses. The war also had a profound impact on the economies and societies of both nations, leading to long-term consequences. Despite intense fighting, neither side was able to achieve a decisive victory. The war ended in a stalemate, with both countries unable to gain a significant advantage. The lack of a clear victor meant that the underlying issues remained unresolved, leading to continued tensions between India and Pakistan. The war highlighted the limitations of military solutions to complex political problems. The conflict ended in a stalemate, with both countries accepting a UN-brokered ceasefire. The ceasefire was a temporary measure to halt the fighting and prevent further escalation. It was a necessary step to bring an end to the hostilities, but it did not address the root causes of the conflict. The ceasefire was followed by diplomatic efforts to find a more permanent solution. The Tashkent Declaration, signed in January 1966, formalized the ceasefire and called for a withdrawal of troops to pre-war positions. The declaration was an important step towards restoring peace, but it did not resolve the underlying issues. The agreement was brokered by the Soviet Union and was seen as a diplomatic success, but it left many questions unanswered. However, the war had a profound impact on India-Pakistan relations, further deepening mistrust and animosity. The conflict reinforced negative perceptions and hardened attitudes on both sides. The legacy of the war continued to influence the relationship between the two countries, making future conflicts more likely. The war also had a significant impact on the political landscape of both nations. It also highlighted the need for a peaceful resolution of the Kashmir dispute. The war underscored the dangers of unresolved territorial conflicts and the importance of dialogue and negotiation. The international community recognized the need for a lasting solution to the Kashmir issue, but finding a mutually acceptable resolution remained elusive. The 1965 war was a stark reminder of the complexities and challenges of the India-Pakistan relationship. The year 1971 witnessed the most significant conflict between India and Pakistan, one that would forever alter the political landscape of South Asia. This war, known as the Bangladesh Liberation War, was not just a military confrontation, but a struggle for identity, freedom, and justice. It was a time when the world watched as a new nation was born amidst the chaos and bloodshed. The war was sparked by the brutal crackdown by the Pakistani army on the Bengali population of East Pakistan, present-day Bangladesh, who were demanding greater autonomy and linguistic and cultural recognition. The seeds of discontent had been sown long before, with years of political and economic marginalization of the Bengali people by the central government in West Pakistan. The Pakistani Army's operation, codenamed Searchlight, aimed to crush the Bengali independence movement. This operation was marked by extreme brutality and a systematic campaign to silence the voices of dissent. The world was horrified by the reports of mass killings, rapes, and the destruction of entire villages. It resulted in widespread atrocities, including killings, rapes, and the displacement of millions of Bengali refugees into neighboring India. The refugee crisis put immense pressure on India, which was already grappling with its own economic challenges. The international community was slow to respond, and the plight of the Bengali people continued to worsen. India, facing a humanitarian crisis on its eastern border, provided support to the Bengali resistance movement, known as Mukti Bahini. The Mukti Bahini, composed of Bengali military personnel and civilians, waged a guerrilla war against the Pakistani forces. Their bravery and determination became a symbol of the Bengali struggle for independence. As the conflict escalated, India intervened militarily on the side of Bangladesh. This intervention was not just a strategic decision, but also a moral one, as India sought to end the suffering of millions of Bengalis. The Indian military's involvement marked a turning point in the war. The Indian Army, along with the Mukti Bahini, launched a coordinated offensive on both the eastern and western fronts. This joint effort showcased the strength and resolve of the Allied forces. The battles were intense, and the determination of the Bengali fighters, combined with the might of the Indian military, began to turn the tide of the war. The war witnessed decisive battles in places like Dhaka, Jessore, and Sylhet. These battles were crucial in breaking the backbone of the Pakistani military presence in East Pakistan. Each victory brought the dream of an independent Bangladesh closer to reality. The 1971 war ended in a humiliating defeat for Pakistan. The swift and decisive actions of the Indian military, combined with the relentless efforts of the Mukti Bahini, left the Pakistani forces with no choice but to surrender. The Pakistani army surrendered to the joint forces of India and Bangladesh in Dhaka on December 16, 1971. This momentous event was a culmination of months of struggle, sacrifice, and unwavering determination by the Bengali people and their allies. This marked the birth of Bangladesh as an independent nation. The creation of Bangladesh reshaped the geopolitical landscape of South Asia and stood as a testament to the resilience and spirit of the Bengali people. The War of 1971 remains a poignant chapter in history, reminding us of the cost of freedom and the enduring power of the human spirit.